Hello and welcome to BLLYF Business News, where for this edition, I'm joined by Rod McIllree, who's an Executive Director of 80 Mile. 80 Mile, listed in London on the AIM market, but also listed in Frankfurt and in New York on the OTC market, a market capitalization of around £11 million sterling. Assets in Italy and also in Greenland, spanning minerals and energy. But today we're going to be talking about Greenland. So, hello, Rod, and welcome back on the program. You've recently reached an agreement with March GL for drilling to commence at the Jameson land basin in Greenland. First of all, just tell us a little bit about what that agreement means.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Good to see you again. Yeah, look, this is a huge development for 80 Mile. Having a group of investors and oil people with such a wide set of skills and monetary resources come to the party with this project is really it's earth changing for us. Jameson is a very significant oil project, and obviously now is the right time to put a couple of holes into it. So we've reached agreement with them to do two holes down to 3,500 metres each for them to earn 70% of the project with all of that cost at their expense. So it's a huge win, keeping 30% free carried.
Okay, and tell us a bit more about March.
Yeah, so it's a private Texan company. It's got, as I said, sort of a number of US oil royalty types in there. I think that over time, their actual identities and what they are bringing to the table will become a little bit more apparent. But we have a sort of in the peripheral orbit, if you like, groups like Halliburton and other drilling contractors and consultants and well management and well logging, et cetera, et cetera. So all of these high order companies are coming at the behest of the original investors of March GL. March GL was only set up a couple of months ago, hence the name March GL. So it is really that simple. And it was done as a special purpose vehicle for the purposes of this transaction.
Okay. And what are you hoping to achieve with the initial exploration holes?
Yeah, so there's a few things that we're looking at here with Jameson. Obviously, we've got the very obvious oil potential, oil and gas. There are other considerations here with industrial gases, hydrogen, helium, xenon, argon, all of those sorts of things are known to occur in naturally evolving sort of oil formations. And also, while we're down there, we're going to be taking sort of geothermal characteristics and readings as well, just because there's in these sorts of basins the potential for geothermal. On a worst case scenario, if there's no oil, then we might be able to get something out of geothermal. So we're getting two bites of that biscuit, if you like.
Drilling is going to commence no later than summer of next year, 2026. So what are the key steps that March needs to take between now and then so that operations can start?
No, exactly, Tim. We've got to keep these Americans to a tight timeline. So the boat will be loaded in Halifax fairly shortly. That will then go up to Dundas, pick up quite a wide range of equipment and necessary items, and then head around to Constable Point during this summer sea lift period. Ideally, you drill these kinds of projects over the winter months because of the frost keeps the ground hard. Yeah, look, I think that one of the things that I've noticed is the team meetings now with all of the all hands meetings is really it's really quite exciting being in on these. Everybody's getting quite excited by this concept. Just watching the enthusiasm of the Halliburton guys, that's always a positive sign as well. But yeah, look, I think that's an easily achievable time period. Yeah.
Okay. Now, March, as I understand it, are funding 100% of the exploration costs. Now, that being the case, how does that partnership strengthen 80 Miles' position, and what does it mean for your capital strategy in the future?
Mm. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what these holes end up actually ultimately costing, Tim. But if I was to sort of suck my thumb and put it in the wind and squint a certain direction, then there could be sort of circa 30 million US dollars for both of these drill holes, and they've opted to fund both of them entirely at their cost, including the mobilisation, demobilisation, etc., etc. So 80 Mile has a free carried 30% position. in something that it has no contribution requirements for. So that's enormously beneficial to us. It'll allow us to focus on disco, which will be our next sort of update to market, and ultimately the Hydrogen Valley, which is a topic for another day as well. But yeah, look, getting free carried in these positions for something as well as significant as 30% as well, Tim, it's very unusual in the oil space.
So Rod, could you please then just elaborate a little bit for us on the significance, the importance of Jameson within the overall context of what Greenland has in its own natural resources?
Yeah, well, to answer that properly, I think, Tim, you need to understand the scale of the opportunity within the global resources. And Jameson, as it sits with the just using the ARCO internal numbers, has sort of circa somewhere in the vicinity of 30 billion barrels plus or minus a couple that should be extractable in place in Jameson. Now, if that is the case, then that would put it in the top 20 oil projects globally, both known and in production. And even a small percentage of success of that overall number will still be very material. So in terms of what this represents to Greenland, it's huge. This project is without doubt the most valuable commodity project in Greenland, as I said. And I think that this will bring with it an enormous amount of optionality, because the cash that these sorts of projects, spit off, examples can be drawn to the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Norway. You're sort of talking about similar sorts of opportunities like that. So, yeah, look, all of the applications to do the drilling are in, and the early parts of that has sort of been approved in terms of the announcements and everything. So we look forward to updating the market here. There's going to be a lot of news flow coming out over this.
Talking of news flow, what else can viewers, investors, potential investors be looking at from within the 80 Mile portfolio? Is there any news coming out on Disco or any of the other assets you have?
Yeah, sure. I think the first ones will really be in the short term to do with Jameson will be the final approval for the drilling, the packing of that boat and all of the ancillary equipment, and the start of drilling over the next sort of, and everything that leads up into that with appointments of consultants and contractors, et cetera, et cetera. These things are very large activities, and there'll be a lot of news flow coming off them. Disco is our current work in progress. I know we're sort of a little bit overdue for an update to shareholders. We're working on a couple of things there. Hope to have that out in the next couple of weeks. And more importantly, we've got some excellent updates for Hydrogen Valley. Things are really actually moving really well down there, Tim. So I would expect that the Hydrogen Valley situation in the next, I don't know, it could be as early as next week. Let's see. But I expect big things from that plant. That's starting to look really good.
Well, Rod, thanks for joining us today. Come back and keep us updated, and hopefully we'll see you soon. That was Rod McIllree, Executive Director of 80 Mile, giving us a very comprehensive update on the Jameson asset there in Greenland. That's it for this edition of BLLYF Business News. Thanks for watching.